I recognize that this has been a difficult year not only for my wife Lori, but for all of us. I worked at Vans Nut and Bolt for 16 years. We manufactured custom fasteners for manufacturers. When a company creates a product, it can't just go to the local hardware store and buy screws. Everything has to be made to their specifications. I started out in sales and worked my way up to sales manager. It was a great job and paid very well. If I met all 4 quarterly quotas, which I always did, my bonus at the end of the year was over $100,000. Of course, with many manufacturers moving overseas, we had to fight to maintain our market share. But I built a good, hard-working team of salespeople, and we always managed to outperform the previous year. A little over a year ago, all of the company's managers, including me, were called to an unscheduled meeting. We were all shocked to learn that the owner of the company was retiring and had been in secret negotiations with a California conglomerate to buy the company. We were being sold. We were introduced to a new CEO and promised that our jobs would be safe and that nothing would change in management. That turned out to be a lie. Within 2 months, the layoffs began. I realized that things were bad and started looking for a new job, but I didn't have time to find anything. They patted me on the back, handed me a check for $10,000 as severance pay, and showed me the door. At first, Lori and I weren't too worried, but after a few months, I began to realize how much the economy had changed during the years I had been working at my comfortable job. Not only had most of the manufacturing moved overseas, but many of the remaining domestic companies were buying their fasteners abroad. I wondered how we had managed to stay afloat, but that was no longer my concern. I needed to find a job. At the time, our 17-year-old son, Lance, was finishing high school. I had mixed feelings when he announced that he was going to join the Army right after graduation. Given everything that was going on in the Middle East, I feared for his safety, and of course, we would both miss him terribly. On the other hand, I was glad we wouldn't have to pay for college because, frankly, we just didn't have the money. About 5 months after I was laid off, it became clear that finding another job that paid $100,000 a year wasn't going to be easy, so I started lowering my expectations. To make up for what I considered a temporary financial setback, Lori also started looking for work. In fact, she found a job before I did. She was hired as an assistant secretary at a software development company. The salary wasn't great, but it was still more than my unemployment benefits. A month after Lori started working, I got a job as a salesman at Enright Automotive. They manufactured auto parts. For the first couple of months, I received a token salary while I was being trained. After that, I was paid a salary plus commission. It was never a high-paying job. One guy had been there for 12 years and was the highest-paid salesman. He only made $60,000 a year. You can imagine what a burden that was on our budget. We were used to financial security. We lived in a nice house with a large mortgage and had 2 Cadillacs, only one of which was paid off. That was mine, a 5-year-old STS. Lori drove the same model, but we bought hers just a few months before I was laid off. We also had several credit cards, most of which were maxed out. Lori and I also missed our nighttime drives around town. That was another perk. After all, if you can't enjoy life, what's the point of having money? We were always going somewhere. Dinner with friends, sometimes dancing, sometimes a show, the theater, or a concert. It wasn't a typical date. We just got together and went out whenever we felt like it. This usually happened 2 or 3 times a month, sometimes more. Unfortunately, this was one of the first things we had to give up when we started cutting back on expenses. It seemed to hit Lori harder than it hit me. Her family was wealthier than mine when she was growing up. I only started having fun and enjoying life in college, and my wife always had fun with her mom and dad. It was practically second nature to her. We hadn't left the house in months, and Lori started complaining. From her perspective, the bills could wait. It started about 3 months ago. "Skylar, we have to do something. I'm going crazy sitting at home night after night doing nothing. I want to go out like we used to. I want to have fun." Lori was always in a bad mood. I sat at the kitchen table looking over our bills. Slowly, very slowly, we were starting to climb out of the hole. I looked at my beautiful wife. "Sure, no problem," I replied sarcastically. "Just tell me which bills not to pay." She just stared at me. For a moment, I thought she was going to scream. But whatever she was thinking, she kept it to herself. As soon as I said it, I felt sick. It wasn't really such a terrible request. "I'm sorry, honey," I apologized. "I promise it won't always be like this. I'm still looking for a better job, but we just need to cool off for a while." "Cool off?" she growled. "Skylar, we've been cooling off for almost a year. I feel like a caged animal. I need to get out of here and have some fun." "I know, honey, I know," I said, trying to calm her down. "Listen, we have a lot of catching up to do. 5 months ago, we didn't pay the mortgage or the second car payment. We were so close," I said, holding my thumb and index finger about an inch apart, "to getting your car back. With this month's commission, we'll be fine except for one car payment. If we cut back on groceries, we'll be fine in 2 months." I saw Lori's lips tighten. She wasn't a happy camper, and I really couldn't blame her. Then I had an idea that I thought was brilliant. "Here's what I propose. Why don't we go to Lincoln Park Zoo this weekend? It's free, and we haven't been there since Lance was little." "Skylar, I don't want to commune with nature. I want to commune with nightlife," she smiled. "I want to eat, drink, and dance until my feet fall off." "Honey, please be patient a little longer. I promise. As soon as we pay all the bills, we'll celebrate by going to a nice restaurant." Without saying a word, she turned and went upstairs. I think I sighed. I felt really bad, but this was Chicago, and with parking and dinner for two, the evening would have cost a couple $100, maybe more. I grew up in a family where bills were paid first. I couldn't justify such an expense when we were still in debt and barely making ends meet, paying the minimum on our credit cards every month. It took me another 10 minutes to finish. I was going to watch the news, but I realized Lori was still upstairs, so I decided to check on her first. When I walked into the bedroom, she was sitting on the edge of the bed, crying. I really felt like an idiot. I sat down next to her, hugged her, and held her tight. "I'm sorry, baby. I'm doing the best I can," I said, pressing my cheek against her head. "I know," she whispered. "It's been such a hard year, and now that Lance is gone, we could have gone somewhere for the weekend. We should have taken a little vacation, but instead we're stuck here. It's almost like being in prison. I thought debt prison had been abolished," she smiled. It was a shame she was looking down when she said that. If she'd been paying attention, she would have seen the anger on my face. Our house wasn't a prison. Hell, I didn't even want to buy it. I thought it was too big and expensive, but as soon as she saw it, she couldn't live without it. Now I'm fighting for it with everything I've got, and she calls it a fucking prison. I had a choice. Either open my mouth and tell her what I thought of her analogy or walk away. I chose the latter. Over the next 2 months, the relationship between Lori and me deteriorated even further. Conversations became shorter and less meaningful. We spent less and less time together in the same room. We had sex less often, and Lori participated less and less. Her cries of passion turned into sobs, and the magic disappeared from the bedroom. She made no secret of her dissatisfaction with my failure to ask her out, but I couldn't help myself. Yes, we both needed freedom. I agreed with her, but not until we had paid the bills. I promised her an evening out on the town in the near future, but that didn't seem to appease her. Everything became clear on Friday after work. I came home in an exceptionally good mood. I had just signed a lucrative contract, and with the commission I would receive at the end of the month, I would finally be able to spend time with my beautiful wife. Unfortunately, I didn't have a chance to tell her about it. When I walked in, she was coming down the stairs, dressed to the nines. "Wow," I said, looking at her. "What's the occasion?" "I'm meeting the girls from work. Don't worry," she said sarcastically. "They're paying." Something seemed off from the start. I immediately had a bad feeling. As far as I knew, Lori had never cheated on me, but you don't put on your sexiest dress to go out with your girlfriends. Besides, my wife was a proud woman. I couldn't imagine her going out and letting her friends pay for everything. It would be like charity. The only time she ever let someone pay for the whole evening was when she was dating someone. I felt the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. Yeah, who are these girls? What are their names? She didn't even seem concerned by my question. Just a few girls from the office. You don't know any of them. You didn't answer my question, Lori. I may have been born at night, but it wasn't yesterday. You don't dress like you're going on a date with your girlfriends. Who are you meeting? Are you on a date with a man? Oh, don't be silly, she replied casually. I told you I'm meeting my friends. If you don't believe me, there's nothing I can do. You're just paranoid because you have a guilty conscience. At that moment, I heard a car horn. I looked out onto the street and saw a taxi waiting outside our building. Are you taking a taxi? Yes, but I'm going to have some fun tonight. God knows we can't afford to drive drunk, so I thought it would be sensible. I suppose the girls are paying for it too? I asked angrily. To tell you the truth, yes, they do. She leaned over and quickly kissed me on the cheek. There's some food left in the fridge from yesterday. You can heat it up in the microwave. I might be late, so don't wait up. With that, she left the house. I looked to see if there was anyone else in the car, but as far as I could see when she slid into the back seat, she was alone. For a moment, I fell into a state of denial. Of course, I knew Lori was angry, but I just couldn't believe that my wife was actually seeing another man. Damn it. We have a son, a whole life together. She wouldn't cheat on me, I told myself. It's just not possible. I took the leftovers out of the refrigerator and put them in the microwave, but as the food heated up, so did me. I wanted so badly to believe that she was just having a good time with her friends from work. But come on. I went to the computer and found the number for a taxi service. When the dispatcher answered, I told him I needed the address of the taxi that had just left my house and gave him my address. I wasn't sure how they felt about confidentiality, but the guy on the other end of the line gave me the information without any problem. Plato's house, 3560 Elmhurst Road. I knew the place. In fact, Lori and I had been there a couple of times. It was a romantic restaurant with a bar, with lots of dimly lit nooks. Not the kind of place a woman goes to have fun with her girlfriends, more the kind of place a man takes a woman to seduce her. By the time the bell rang to signal that my dinner was ready, I had a knot in my stomach the size of a softball. I believed that husbands and wives should stick together when things got tough, not betray each other. Damn it, I thought. Maybe I'll go to Plato's for dinner myself. There were two entrances to the establishment, one to the lounge and one to the restaurant. If I went in through the lounge, I wouldn't have to deal with the hostess. I didn't want a drink, so I walked past the bar and headed straight for the restaurant. A quick scan of the room revealed that my wife was sitting at a table with another man. She had her back to me, but I had no doubt it was her. They were both talking over a plate of appetizers, and there was already a bottle of wine on the table. I felt the blood boil in my veins. I stared at the bastard who was trying to sleep with my wife and began to aggressively approach him. I was just a few steps away from him when Mr. Slick must have sensed something. He stopped talking and looked up. Our eyes met, and he suddenly became nervous. I was only a couple of steps away from her when Lori looked over her shoulder to see what her lover was looking at. "Skylar," she cried, "what are you doing here?" "I came to meet your girlfriends," I replied sarcastically. "Who's this jerk?" "Hi," he said, starting to get up. "Come on, give me a reason," I threatened. "You know very well she's married. I guess that doesn't mean anything to you, does it? Tell me, do you leave a trail of dirt behind you when you crawl?" He looked confused. He was still standing, half crouching, when my wife intervened. "Skylar, please don't make a scene. This is Jerry. I work with him. Since you're too cheap to ask me out," he offered. "He just wanted to be nice." "Yeah, right," I growled. He just wants to get into your pants. I looked at Jerry. He must have decided it wasn't worth arguing with me because he sat back down. If you try anything with my wife again, I'll help you drag you across town tied to the bumper of my car. Let's go. Your night is over, I said to my wife. She hesitated for a second, but like Jerry, she decided not to test me any further. I'm so sorry, she said to Mr. Cool as she stood up. I believed that everyone in the bar was watching us as I took her by the arm and led her out of the bar. No one said a word in the car. However, as soon as we got in the car, everything changed. What was that, Lori? Tell me. Did you suddenly decide that I'm no longer worthy of being your husband? No, of course not. I just wanted to get out of the house and have some fun for a change. Who is he, Jerry? How long have you been seeing him? I asked, getting angrier by the minute. He's just a colleague. We weren't dating. We had lunch together a couple of times, that's all. I mentioned that we weren't spending as much time together as we used to and said I missed that. He asked me out to dinner and dancing, and I said yes. Shoot me, she said mockingly. I don't believe it, I said, almost in shock. I believed our marriage was stronger than that. We're going through a difficult period, and you're ready to leave me. Who said anything about a deposit? I work every day now, too. I deserve a little fun from time to time. If you won't take me with you, why should I turn down someone who will? Because you're my wife, damn it, I said, raising my voice. That's why. We're supposed to be a damn team. She didn't say anything, but I could tell from her expression that she was mocking my words. Is this what I have to look forward to now? Being married to a person I can't trust? Do I have to worry about who you're with and what you're doing when you disappear from my sight? Tell me, what were your plans for the rest of the evening? Were you going to sleep with him? Of course not, she replied sharply. I looked at the woman I had been married to for almost 20 years, and for the first time I didn't believe her. Not one bit. I don't believe you, I said. You lied to me when you said you were meeting your friends, and you didn't even care that I didn't believe you. Why should I believe you now? I admit it's been a tough year, but a wife should support her husband. Remember what we said to each other at the altar. In sickness and in health, in poverty and in wealth. At that moment, my thoughts were as clear as day. Our marriage is over, I declared. This time, her mockery was verbal. Don't be silly, she dismissed me. We're broke, don't forget. You can't afford a lawyer. How are you going to get a divorce? You can't even move out. I wanted to respond with something witty, but to be honest, I was too stunned. I believed that some people just couldn't handle adversity. She had clearly stopped loving me and stopped respecting me. After 19 years, my marriage had fallen apart as quickly as it had come together. I probably would have burst into tears, but I was too angry. Without saying a word, I went upstairs and started packing my suitcase. Lori waited a good 10 minutes before coming over to see what I was doing. What's that? She asked sharply. Oh, I see. You can't take me out to dinner, but you can afford a night in a motel. Great, she shouted, turned around, and left. Enright Automotive had contracted most of its production overseas, but we manufactured some of our products ourselves. There was a small factory adjacent to the office. It had a large shower room where workers could freshen up before going home, and there was a sofa in the office reception area. At that moment, all I needed was a shower and a place to sleep. When I came downstairs with my suitcase, Lori was in the kitchen. Hearing the door open, she called out to me, but I didn't stop to hear what she wanted to say. I threw my things in the car and drove away. I hadn't driven a mile when my phone rang. Sitting in the car with my seatbelt on, I couldn't reach the phone even if I wanted to, so I switched it to voicemail. It only took a few seconds for me to become interested in what she wanted to say. When I got to the office, I took my phone out of my pocket. I had been thinking about it the whole way there. I believed I would hear Lori crying, apologizing, and begging me to come back, but instead, Skylar, you're acting like a child. I told you I wasn't going to sleep with Jerry, and I meant it. Now get your ass home." Not quite what I was expecting. I left everything but the bare essentials in the car. There was no point in telling everyone at work what was going on. It was still early, so I went to the break room and watched TV to take my mind off my problems, but it didn't help. I couldn't stop thinking about what would have happened if I hadn't gone to the restaurant. Would she really have gone home after a few dances? I'll probably never know, but I doubt it. Even if she had left, that slimy Jerry didn't look like the type to give up so easily. I'm sure he would have dragged her into bed anyway. Finally, I gave up trying to watch anything and set my alarm early so I could shower and get dressed before the guys from the factory started arriving at 7. As I tried to fall asleep, I thought about what to do. Lori was right. I didn't have money for a lawyer or even an apartment. I had to come up with something. Lori had shown contempt for our marriage and for me personally. I wasn't going to crawl home with my tail between my legs. In fact, I was a little surprised when the alarm clock woke me up the next morning. I couldn't believe I had slept so well on that couch. That damn thing was an instrument of torture. I took a shower and got dressed, then headed over to Danny's place to have a leisurely breakfast. I was going to kill time there until it was time to go to work. I was drinking my 4th cup of coffee when the solution to my problem came to me like a flash of inspiration. Of course, it was so simple. Why I hadn't thought of it before was a mystery to me. Back at the Enright's parking lot, I took out my cell phone and took a picture. The first thing I did when I sat down at my desk was to place the ad. 2 days later, I took the day off. I had a few things to do. Knowing that Lori would be at work, I drove home and found the documents I needed in our personal filing cabinet. On my way out, I grabbed a spare set of keys. Later that day, I checked into a motel and called Lori. As soon as she heard my voice, she started again. "Finally. Are you done with your tantrum? I can't believe you couldn't find the money to take me out to dinner, but you can sit in a motel for 2 days. "Actually," I interrupted her, "I stayed at the office." "At the office?" "Yes, there's a shower, a comfortable couch, and a room with a TV. Just like home," I said, lying through my teeth. She responded in kind. "Well, that's ridiculous. Stop being stubborn and come home." "I'm not going home, Lori. I told you our marriage is over. I just called to say you need a ride home." "What? Why? What happened to your car?" "Nothing," I replied. "Your car runs 1,000 times better than mine." There was a short pause while she undoubtedly tried to understand what I was saying. "Skylar, what are you talking about?" "I sold my car and got $18,000 for it. That's more than enough to hire a divorce lawyer and make the down payment on an apartment. Of course, since I work in sales, I still need a car, so I took yours. I stopped by our house this morning and picked up the registration papers for both cars and the spare keys to yours." "Skylar!" she shouted. "You can't do this! How am I going to get around?" "Actually, since both cars are registered in my name, I can do this. I didn't take anything out of the accounts. All the bills for the month are paid, so there's not much left. But if you budget carefully, you should have enough for food and taxis. If you run out of money, I'm sure Jerry would be happy to invite you over for dinner, provided, of course, that you give him what he wants." Suddenly, she spoke with a very depressed expression on her face. "Skylar, please don't do this. I never believed you would really go this far. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have met with Jerry, but I was furious. Honestly. Nothing will happen." "Lori, you lied to me. You were seeing another man behind my back. And then you treated me with contempt and showed no remorse when I caught you. Admit it, Lori, you don't love or respect me. You made that very clear last night when you were talking to me." "Skylar, I'm so sorry." "I'm sorry too, Lori. We had a good thing going when life was easy, but when the going got tough, we let each other down." He was surprised to hear her sobbing on the other end of the line, but it didn't matter anymore. He continued, "The house is in both our names. It's our only asset, so we need to sell it as soon as possible." He heard her gasp. "Sell the house? Skylar, do we have to do this? Lori, we're behind on the mortgage, but I'm not going to pay for the house anymore, and you can't afford the monthly payments. Yes, it needs to be sold immediately. I think we can split 50 or 60,000. You can buy yourself a decent used car and find an apartment. Skylar, I don't want a divorce. Please, let's talk about this. I'm sorry, Lori, but it's not about what you want anymore. So are you going to call the realtor or am I? Lori stood on the sidewalk in front of her apartment, staring at the gray sky, when she heard the honking of a flock of geese flying north, a pleasant reminder that spring was just around the corner. She made her way through the melting slush to her 10-year-old Honda and headed to Starbucks to meet an old friend. She was looking forward to seeing Julia. It had been a typical Chicago winter with cold temperatures, lots of snow, and slippery roads, so Lori had spent most of her time locked in her apartment when she wasn't at work. Julie had already taken a table in the corner and was sipping her latte when Lori walked in. They greeted each other, kissed each other on the cheek, as girls do, and Lori got in line for coffee. As she stood in line, Lori felt glad to be out of the house and visiting her friend. When she returned to the table with her coffee, she was greeted by warm smiles and friendly voices. Lori, I'm so glad to see you. It's been a long time. Yes, too long, she replied with a hint of sadness in her voice. I don't leave the house anymore. How come? When we were younger, you were such a party girl. Yeah. Well, life was a lot easier back then. Now I don't have the money to go to parties. What about dates? Remember, you meet a handsome man and he pays, Julie joked. Lori pretended to laugh. It's a vicious circle. You can't go on dates if you don't leave the house, and you can't afford dates if you don't have a man. What about guys at work? Julie asked. No one but losers and married men, Lori replied. Let's not talk about it. It's depressing. How are the kids? Oh, they're great. Charlie Jr. just got a promotion at work, and Debbie is in her 3rd year of college. They grow up so fast, don't they? Sure, Lori replied. Lance has 1 year left on his contract, and he's already talking about extending it. He really likes it. How's your husband? Charlie's fine, working hard as always. Lori noticed a shy look on her friend's face. What? Oh, nothing, Julia replied even more shyly. Come on, spill it. You wanted to ask me something. I just wanted to ask if you've seen Skylar. No, not since we signed the divorce papers. She paused for a moment. God, that was 2 years ago. Why are you asking? I just believed... I'm not sure I should tell you, but I think it's better to hear it from a friend. What? Is he okay? Yes, he's fine. I ran into him the other day and we talked. He's, What's going on with him, Julie? Come on, spill it. Okay. He's getting married again. Although Lori knew their relationship had long since ended, she still found it difficult to accept the news. She felt her eyes welling up with tears. There was sadness in her voice. I'm not surprised, she said quietly. He's a great guy. She lowered her eyes and confessed, Sometimes I think back on what we had and wonder how I could have been so stupid. She took a sip of coffee, then looked up at her friend. You know, I really loved him. I did. It's just that everything got so bad with the bills and everything else that I started feeling sorry for myself. At the time, all I could think about was getting away from all our problems and having fun. Julia said nothing. She believed it was best just to listen. Skylar was right. About everything. I really lost respect for him. Maybe I even stopped loving him for a while. It's stupid, I know. It's not his fault he got fired. He did everything he could to keep us from losing everything, but I couldn't see anything but my own selfish desires. I just needed everything to be my way. I remember once Skylar suggested we go to the zoo for the weekend, but I wanted to spend the night out on the town, so I turned him down flat. Damn, he was even right about Jerry. He's the guy Skylar caught me with at dinner. Skylar asked me if I was going to sleep with him at the end of the night. Of course, I said no, but between us, that's exactly what I was going to do. Oh, Lori. Yes, I know. Believe me, Julie, if I could do it all over again, I would have done things completely differently. Does he still live in that little apartment he rented? Oh, no, he moved out of there a long time ago. I can't believe you haven't heard. Julie hesitated again. What now? Don't tell me he won the lottery? No, nothing like that. But he went back to his old job at Van. It was a while ago, a few months after your divorce was finalized. I believe they started losing clients right after they fired Skylar. Eventually, they called him and offered him his job back. After some negotiation, he accepted their offer. Heck, he's making more money now than he ever did. When she finished speaking, Julie saw a tear roll down Lori's cheek. I'm sorry, honey. I shouldn't have said anything. No, she replied, shaking her head. No one is to blame but me, she said. I can't tell you how many nights I've gone to bed believing that the last 2 years were just a nightmare and that the next morning I'll wake up with Skylar lying next to me. But then I wake up and face reality again. I'm genuinely happy for him. Tell him that if you see him. I will, dear, Julia replied sympathetically. The girls changed the subject and talked about many other things. When they finally parted, Lori pretended that everything was fine. But as soon as she got into her car and drove away, she couldn't hold back and burst into tears.